All right, hello everybody. You guys here for Art Heals?
Yep.
Awesome. I'm just on the phone with Frank Ordaz. He's out in Auburn, California, has some tinnitus or earring when he travels, so he wasn't able to come. But we're just getting all set up over here. Anybody catch a little bit about what he's done, his background? Okay, so Frank is an Academy Award winner and an Emmy Award winner. Emmy from like an Ewok TV show way back, and also Return the Jedi. So matte painting, indoor, and background paintings, and also in the Death Star. So amazing background, you know, working day in, day out with George Lucas back in the day, and an amazing man of God, and super generous, because I messed up a recording, but even better, we get him live. So I'll plug him in now. Oh yeah, that was his name. But he has this amazing story about a painting that he did, and we were talking about it the other day, and I'll try to I'll let him describe it, and then I'll try to find a way to show it at the same time. All right, thanks. Let's get him plugged in. All right, Frank, we're waiting for the picture to show up over here.
How did you find it? Did you find it?
Yep, we're good. You are live now. We're with a bunch of folks here.
Did you find the picture? Because I don't know if it's on my website. I think it's under Sacred.
Yeah, it's I definitely have it. Let me pull it up for them to see.
Okay. Look of your big mug.
All right, so yeah, we have it up.
Okay.
You had some gasps in the audience. Very impressive work, of course. Yeah, so we would love to hear the story behind this.
Okay, do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, how's the volume?
It's perfect.
Okay, good. Well, I painted that image several years ago, and I entered it in a show with a group called Masterpiece Fine Art, and it was a traveling show, and I believe it was called Into the Light, or Let There Be Light. Okay, so it's a small painting. It's about, I think, about 5 by 7 or something like that, and it meant a lot to me because it's about. It was produced for an article, and I forgot what magazine it was for, but it was for an article about teenage suicide and ministering to young men who lose hope and get discouraged and take their own life. So the image I came up with was a young man in despair. That was a neighbor boy. And the healing part of touch. So you see the hands of Jesus on his shoulders, because there's a connection there that the Lord is there, and the touch is sometimes more powerful than words. So I entered that into a show, and I really didn't want to sell it, and I overpriced it by a lot of money. And because one of my friends had carved a special frame for it, and I figured, okay, I'll get it back because it means a lot to me. So I put it at a certain price. So anyway, I get this call from Jeannie, who was the director, Jeannie Randall, who was the director of that show. And she goes, you know, that painting sold. And I went, no way. And so part of it was joyful, the other part was like, oh gosh, so we actually paid the price for that image. And she goes, but I gotta tell you the story behind it. And I go, okay, because she was so moved by the story, she had to relate it back to me. And so she goes, well, this man comes in to watch the show. He's looking at all the paintings, and he stops in front of this painting. Again, this painting's really small. It's only 5 by 7. And He starts looking at it for a while, and then all of a sudden she realizes that he's weeping. He's crying, sobbing. And she's moved by the situation, and she goes up to talk to him because part of the show is ministry. And so she didn't know who he was and why this painting was affecting him. And so she goes up to him and she goes, what's happening? And he goes, well, he used to be, or he was, he is, I can't quite remember the story, but he was in a ministry working with these young boys, because I had also written by the painting what was the inspiration behind the painting. And he was working with these young boys who had committed suicide, were at risk. Some had committed suicide and some had followed through. And I guess it conjured up some images. Maybe it reminded him of somebody. And it just brought to the foreground all these memories that he had ministering to these young men. And it was, in some ways, it was very therapeutic. And so he's relating the story to her, and he goes, man, I wish I could afford it, because, this is just, it brings back so many emotions, and it's a positive image, and sometimes that's all that I could do is just to hold them, to let them know somebody was there and present, because I would imagine he was like a father figure. So he goes home, and his wife obviously sees that his calmness has changed, and so she goes, what's going on? And so he relates the story, and she can tell that he's visibly moved by the image. And I guess he tells her what the price is. So she goes, a lot of it's out of curiosity, so she goes to the show to see this image, to see the painting. And she's moved by it too. And she goes, well, Christmas is coming up, a month away or a couple months away. And she goes, I have to buy it. I have to buy it for my husband. And so she purchases the painting. And I would have loved to have known what the reaction was when he opened up the package and saw this image. But it also shows, the love of the wife for her husband, so she gets him something that's meaningful. It's not like just going to a store and buying somebody just a gift that nobody's going to care about. But it really mattered to her. And I've had a lot of experiences like that with paintings. I did a painting one time of just a rock, and it was like almost like a study. And somebody bought the painting of this rock, and then they contacted me and they said that the person that bought it was dying of cancer. It was a father-son thing. I think the father was dying of cancer and bought it for the son. And he goes, and it just so happened that this was this rock that they had played on. It's in a place called Sand Harbor in Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side. And it was a God thing that they had so many good memories around this rock. The kids jumped up on the rock and jumped on and off and that sort of thing. And so the father wanted the son to have that, to remember the good times. And I'm sure, I don't know if there was a spiritual component there, just the rock. But a lot of those things have happened to me where the paintings have brought people together, or to remind them of good distant memories. Because if you can recall in the Old Testament, every time God did something powerful for the children of Israel, they built a monument, and the monument was there to remind them of the glorious thing that God had done for them, because we tend to forget things. And that is one healing aspect of art. It's a reminder. I have a painting, you probably can't see it that well, it's right here. It's called A Brother's Keeper. And I have one boy who's disabled, another boy who works for YWAM. And so part of the reason I painted that was to remind the older son that he should be his brother's keeper. And so like I told Mr. Lowe yesterday, you know, like Forrest Gump, that's all I've got to say about that.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Which piece are you describing?
The one behind.
Oh, the one behind you. Okay, yeah. I do have that one as well.
Right there.
I can try to find that.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time finding it. It's kind of deep. It's kind of deep into one of my albums called Faces.
Yeah, I don't have it immediately. Not on mine.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things that just happened. You know, I just thought of it right now.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So as we were chatting yesterday, he also mentioned how folks will just walk into your studio, right? And maybe they'll even ask for a commission. In particular.
Well, I had a serious conversation with somebody today. Kind of came in and you know, it was getting pretty intense there for a while. You know, because they're from a different denomination and not Christian. You know, kind of one of those things. And all to say, I get into a lot of interesting conversations with people who walk in. And in fact, somebody else came in today. A young man, I had done a painting of his grandfather. His grandfather had passed away. Even yesterday, this young man came in. I hadn't seen him in years. I did a painting of him when he was, oh my gosh, probably about 10. He's about 17. And it was great to see him kind of walk in. He goes, "Remember me?" And I kind of looked at him and I go, "Yeah." And so, you know, we hugged each other and, you know, he's not a Christian, and paintings can bring people together. So
yeah, awesome.
To me, it's a vehicle. It's a gift. It's a vehicle for connection.
Awesome.
And that's what gives God glory, as opposed to, you know, Frank Ordaz this or Frank Ordaz that. It's a way of being an ambassador for me for connection.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Does anyone have any questions for Frank while we have him on? He does have the ringing in his ears right now. It's at a low level.
Oh, it's not that bad. Don't worry about that. Don't talk about that. That's for you and me. It's not for everybody.
All right. So, anyone have a question so we can release Frank back to what he's been doing? He's probably working on a few paintings even as we speak. Anyone have a question for him? Yeah.
With this painting, like, so you had an idea. Obviously, painting takes a while. So once you have the idea, you're driven by the idea. Like, what is the process to do a final painting? Are you taking references from your head? Are you referencing other artists? Like how do you have the emotion? Now, how do you get into a piece that you're happy with?
So he's asking a question, Frank, about your process.
Okay, and that's just probably with oil paint or like what?
And you said there's a.
Because I heard him, and I couldn't.
Okay, you heard it all?
Said more than just process. She asked a real specific question. What was that specific question?
I guess the question is. Oh, it's your mouth. It's mine.
Seems like he can hear you fine.
Hi.
I can't hear. It's broken up, so you're gonna have to translate.
Okay.
Okay. So once you have the idea,
Okay.
what are all the steps to get to where you feel finished and that it feels the way you want it to feel?
Okay. Once I have an idea, what are the steps to get into a finished painting? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me show you something. Do you guys remember that movie Howard the Duck?
Yes.
Okay, let me just show you something. Because we used to do like little sketches, production sketches for George Lucas. So hold on a second. Let me show you how things work. Okay. Normally I have an idea for, we have ideas. We do like little production sketches, and I've always kind of done that only because when you're working on a big budget movie, you want to kind of see what it's going to look like. So this was like a production sketch for Howard the Duck, where I think he's kind of blasted out of his duck island, and he's coming down on, he's moving away from this, okay? So I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so I would do a lot of these little sketches, and so I get these ideas, and so I do small sketches, and I'll show you another one I'm working on soon. Like I found these old black and whites of like Sitting Bull. Right now I'm doing a whole series of prominent Indian chiefs. So I'll do these small little sketches. These are like about 4 by 5. Okay? And so I'll do these, and these are from a black and white photograph. And I like working from black and white photographs because that way I'm not copying the color. It's all kind of like inspiration. And in fact, here, I'll walk you guys. Let's see here. Hold on. This will be fun for you. Okay. Like right now, I'm working on this thing. Okay? Can you see that? So this one's called A Time for Peace. And so this is one of the few paintings I had a small sketch for. And this is that painting I was talking about. Can you see that? Okay. And so this one I'm working on. And so I do all these small little sketches. These are all small before I do a large painting. And so once I come up with these ideas, like this one here, this one is called Between Heaven and Earth, and it's actually kind of an allegory of the prodigal son. Okay, and so like these are all small sketches for future paintings, and I just have gotten into the habit of just doing a lot of small sketches. This is the one I was kind of working on yesterday for this thing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Frank.
See that? This eventually was a larger painting. This will be another future painting. So I just got tons of small sketches that I do that may or may not end up being a painting. This was an interesting painting where I painted this guy. He's actually got one arm. Can you see that? And I ended up meeting him, his whole family, and all because of this painting. It was an actual part like of his healing process. And this is a painting that I gave to my son, and they moved to Hawaii. He's part of Hawaii now. This is The Two Shall Be One, the husband and the wife, and these particular trees all grew into each other. And so, they didn't start that way, but eventually they become part of each other. To uproot one, you uproot the other. So, and this one here, this painting here of a young gal. So my whole process is I do a small. Here's a good example. This is a painting I'm going to start next. This is good. This one's called Sir Buckenstein. So from the rodeo, we have a rodeo here in Auburn. So I'm gonna paint this on a 30 by 30. So this is just a sketch, and then from there I'll draw it out, and then paint in oils, and another sketch there. So this is kind of what I do. This is my setup.
Cool. Does that kind of answer your question about his process a little bit? Yeah. Thanks so much, Frank. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time and your stories. Thanks for the inspiration. Give him a big round of applause.
Okay, so how do you cut me off here? How do I get out of here?
Okay, I'll just click off here, and that should free you for the rest of the afternoon. Thanks a lot, Frank. God bless you. All right, great. All right, so how was that? Is that a treat? So back to the how art heals. It's pretty clear that there was a lot of emotional release, psychological, dealing with trauma, or I suppose, I don't know if you would call it secondary trauma for the guy. Anyone in counseling? In art therapy in particular, perhaps? Or okay, wonderful. Yeah, so I think that was an inadvertent kind of healing that Frank was able to bring to that gentleman in connecting with the theme of the show, in reaching into his own spirituality for the inspiration of the piece and realizing the piece. As he said, he loved it so much he didn't want to sell it, so he overpriced it. And then he says, I don't know if you guys could hear with the audio, but he said that his friend had made a frame for it too, hand carved and all that kind of stuff. So doubly, he didn't want to sell it. He loved it, and his friend's frame was around it, and then it sold, but in a really wonderful way, really miraculous way even. So there's the whole emotional part. There's the story with the rock, which I don't have, but it's just a painting of a boulder. He paints landscapes. He loves how the light plays on these landscapes. This happened to be a boulder, and it happened to be the exact same boulder in that town where this family had been going through some pretty tough stuff, health, cancer issues, and that kind of thing. And just by divine appointment, they came into a shop. He had that stone painted and was able to bring a lot of encouragement, a lot of emotional release and emotional healing, and bonds and strengthened bonds between the family members. So that's Frank, just a couple examples. I mean, he was saying that folks will come into his shop, his studio, out in Auburn, California, not too far away, and they'll tell him a story, or they'll give him a photo of their dog or their pet who had just passed. And, it's a commission most often, but he'll paint it, and having lost his own pets before, a lot of the time, particularly in those situations where it is a pet that has passed, he'll just give it to them for free. And he puts it that he seeks to comfort as he's received comfort. It's a piece of scripture that he likes to quote from 2 Corinthians. And so that's this, he's like a big brother and uncle to me. How we met is what I do. I'm his younger brother in a couple ways. So he worked at Industrial Light and Magic way back in the day, as I mentioned. I also worked on it. I worked there 1999 through about 2005. And so I'm a younger brother in that way too. He started off, and someday when you go to Auburn and you talk to him, ask him about his story, but he started out fresh out of art school, superstar in his class, gets hired straight out of school, and was immediately working on this blockbuster Return of the Jedi, which receives an Academy Award for visual effects, so he shares in that award, and later he receives an Emmy for other projects. How I know him is from him coming to our school to teach oil painting. You can see this little sign up here, the School of Illustration. This is a school that we often run in Kona, Hawaii, with a group called Youth of the Mission. So a Christian mission organization. We have a training branch, the University of the Nations, and we train in everything. So everything from music, to visual arts, to dance, to photography, to video, law stuff, medical stuff, whatever. It's like, like a university. And just to give you a little context for what I'm going to say next, I'll indulge this a little bit since we are at the con. These are some examples of his paintings. And anybody remember this shot? Return of the Jedi, the new Death Star. Here's another one, the Emperor or Darth Vader, or both of them are inspecting the troops or coming in for the visit. These are from print, so it doesn't show as photographic. You know, it's kind of a scan of a print, so it's not showing how beautiful these look and how realistic, photorealistic they look. Here's one from Endor. That's him back in the day. Him helping put some touch-ups, finishing the details to the second Death Star, and so on. That's the one from the Ewok show. So I come from that background as well. Let me see if I got something here that I can show real quick. Here's some pitch pieces from Pirates of the Caribbean as it came through as a script. Here's Frank again. This is somebody else's art. These are some pitch art that we did. This is some pitch art that we did for an Artemis Fowl development. You know, eventually it became a film, but this was like 10 years, 15 years before the film came out. This is from Van Helsing. This is a tower, part of Dracula's lair, Dracula's tower in Van Helsing. This is a version of his bat beast that he might turn into. These are all some steps from the transformation sequence of the werewolf. These are from Pirates 2. Pufferfish, Cursed Pirate, and another, I don't know, he's coral, he's sea cucumber, a bunch of strange things, tentacles from octopus. And these are some of the design sketches for the first Pirates. So that's kind of how I followed in his footsteps. He landed in Lucasfilm, I landed there. He's doing a lot of Christian ministry now, even through his paintings, and that's where I am now as well. Let's see. And so, I'm going to show you this picture here. So you can pretty clearly see the one crutch in his hand, right? Do you see the second one? Kinda? It's crisscrossed, it's a little lighter, it's lit up. I don't know what's in his right hand, but I think the two are there, almost like ski poles. So this fellow came to our group. This is in Paris, France, just outside in this one suburb, or anyway, it's a neighborhood just outside of Paris proper, called Aubervilliers, and he couldn't walk. He was on 2 crutches, but you can see him now walking away with a little help from that other crutch. But before, he had intense pain in both feet. Aubervilliers is it's got a really heavy North African immigrant community, so a lot of Muslims, so also from the Middle East. And so it's a really strongly Muslim community. There's churches and stuff like that there too that we're partnering with. We bumped into him on the street. Our friends started to pray for him, and he went from being in intense pain on both crutches and hobbling off the bus to walking home. He still said he had some pain in one of his legs, but the other one was completely healed, and the pain was entirely blown away and gone. So this is kind of the world that we've entered into as we've served Jesus all over the world and that kind of thing. But to bring this kind of topic of healing back to art, this is a story of myself and my daughter, who's sitting up here in the second row. You want to wave? No, probably not. She usually doesn't like to. And this is her, roughly the age of when this story happened. I think she was 6. We had moved to China. I was teaching English out there. And this is her again with the red pants. And so we were out there, and she didn't look like this at all. We were there maybe a couple weeks. She was starting to come down with the stomach flu. She had a fever, and So I had heard, sometimes when you draw somebody a picture, God will bring healing through it. And so I drew this one picture, I kind of showed it to her, she's like, whatever. And then I started to pray and I asked God about it again. And I said, why don't you draw something that she would really love? And boom, immediately she was all about bunnies, and all about pink, and all about purple. As 5 and 6-year-old girls often are. So I did this piece, which technically I might not be super proud of, but because I think the face kind of looks funny, but I never drew bunnies, I drew scary stuff. So it wasn't completed like this. It probably was just a head and maybe the fuzz and a little bit of the pinks in there. And before it was finished, I showed this to her. She was like kind of groaning in bed. As soon as she saw it, she popped up and it was gone. No more fever, no more weakness, no more stomach, like being doubled over and that whole thing. At the time, my wife and I had started to feel something come on us as well. I started to feel rumbles in my stomach. She was like starting to feel the energy sap. And, but immediately, Sorelli felt better. And I was like, wow. And then I was hoping, is this gonna work on me? But by bedtime that night, my wife was all better. She recovered. And I still was a little off until the morning. But by morning, I was fine as well. So, I don't know how it works. In scripture, Jesus prays for people that get healed. Sometimes he casts out a demon and physical illness goes away as well. He put mud on somebody's eyes and they got healed. They got eyeballs that they never had before, or eyeballs that never worked, ever, suddenly worked. So I suppose that's kind of like art. But this was an example of, giving my daughter a drawing and a gift, an expression of love, and her popping up and being totally better. Let me show you. So just a little context for this also. It's kind of rough in this part of town. Our missions group has a base out there because rents are lower out there. And one of the nights coming back from our outreaches, we go out in the afternoon, come back at night, 10 o'clock at night, there's a knifing as we walked home, like right in front of a group of our team. They right in front of their apartment. There was a knifing. They came to ours, and then about an hour later, they went back home. And this is not Paris. Well, this is Paris, and so we do these outreaches. This is not Paris. This is Marseille in the south of France. Can't see too clear, but there's a burnt out car right there. The day that we arrived, there's a church right next door where we were, based out of. We were sleeping there. We were staying there for a couple weeks. I didn't hear what happened, but some of the other team members heard things like these kids kind of cackling at night, and boom, there's this big fire that went up. And here's what it looked like before. Kind of trash. You see the dumpster and the car there. This is from Google Maps, so it's not exactly the day before or anything like that, but that's the street corner. And then they lit it. So these are kind of rough parts of town. When you come in as an outsider, they don't take to you immediately. So we do our best to win people over just by serving, coming down low and offering what we can. But in instances like this, it's really stuff that we can't do, that we've seen God pull through on and win people over. So that's context for some of the different things we did. Like when the story that happened with the bunny, happened in China, and it was a similar kind of situation where we were offering English teaching, and just on the weekend or whatever it happened to be, she ended up feeling bad and recovering. So that's kind of two aspects of healing. A few more minutes. There's also, I think you'll hear a lot of this in a lot of the panels. The inspiration behind some of the stories, the graphic novels, the paintings that are created, and it's the cathartic end of things. Some of our other friends who couldn't make it. Like to talk about dealing with identity crises, or personal identity crisis. Our friend Jean Yang wrote this graphic novel, American Born Chinese. Is anyone familiar with that one? Some folks. It's entered into classrooms as graphic novels, as literature. Also, occasionally, it was made into a Disney Plus TV series a couple years ago, and it's pretty fun. You know, it's basically Gene dealing with some of his issues of growing up. You know, when he felt like he didn't want to be Chinese, or he didn't want to be American, and the struggle, and then the pain coming from different directions, maybe from his parents or his family, as far as him being too American for the family or something like that, and then from the other side, coming from a Chinese background and dealing with whatever bullying that might come out of that. So there's a whole other end of creating artwork that, for the creator, brings a great deal of healing. You know, as you tell the story. Brianna was also on the list. Last year, she put out her first graphic novel, Ephemera, and that one it's a real impressionistic story of events that happen with her mom there, and then her mom's not there, and then she's this banshee kind of ghosty figure, and how that affected her childhood. And she said that in creating that book, there wasn't a ton of healing from years and years of this strange in and out relationship with her mom, but she did say that she felt like she understood that it was okay for her to not entirely like her mom, that there were certain things that she didn't like about her and her mental illness and that whole situation. So what had been baggage for her and tied her up in a knot for many years was untied as she created. So, yeah, we got a couple minutes left. Questions?
Is the Charles Wu that's listed on the cover that showed us the same Wu who wrote Interior Chinatown?
No, I don't believe so. So, is the author of this one the same as Interior Chinatown?
Yeah. Is it Charles Wu or different?
No, these are some of the performers.
Never mind.
I don't think Gene's name is on this particular poster. So the creator of this comic, the graphic novel, is Jean Lewin Yang. Yeah, so we're open up to questions. Anyone have any questions? We do have a mic up in front if anyone wants to come forward and folks can hear better. But if you want to just ask from your seat, that's fine too. Yes?
Do you, in your ministry, facilitate art experiences where people are creating art to heal?
Inadvertently, for myself, yeah.
For yourself, yeah.
In that school that Frank helped out in, I've seen it done, just in little one-off pieces, but also in pieces, multiple pieces. So basically like a mini comic book, where the topic was, I've been freed from this. And in particular, for those who come from a spiritual background, is Jesus freed me from this. And we had one student who I would say was the top student, and she had been really prolific for like 5 weeks. It come up to 6 weeks, week 6 or whatever it was, and she got the topic and like hit a wall. Nothing. Monday, nothing. It's only a week long for this topic. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, we approached her and said, "What's going on?" And normally you just have everything finished, or really well developed, on its way to being finished, and nothing happened. So just through talking with her, and as we prayed with her, we received some clues about what was bugging her. And so we asked like a couple quick key questions, and then the rest of the story came out. It was like just a trigger, and then you put a hole in the dike, and then it floods. The whole thing collapses, and all the water rushes out. But that wasn't the healing part, right? A lot of art, when it's created, it gets it out. That's phase 1. Phase 2 was, again, just through prayer, getting a clue and asking her about the culprit, like what caused this crisis. And then as we addressed that, immediately she changed within a day, within an afternoon, just like an hour, however long we were hanging out with each other. She was a different person. A lot of tears and stuff like that. But she came out smiling. And from that point on, for the rest of the school, she was back to being prolific, but like 2-3 times more. If there's a way to have been more prolific and created more artwork than she had already done in the first half of the school, it doubled, literally doubled, or tripled, whatever. But it was significantly more, and in a lot more different directions. Because part of it was this rejection from art school, and her being locked into one way of working. So even though she was prolific, she was locked into one way of working. But after that, it was just, every style, cartoony, realistic, colorful, monochromatic, black and white, whatever. Content, story time, the type of story she's telling, it was just everywhere. And it was just night and day. It was amazing. And praise God. Yeah, thanks for the question. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, Mark.
What inspired you to move from your professional work to your ministry work as an artist?
Good question. I kind of told this story, the full story, in a different panel last year. Short form of it, how can I tell that? Let's see. Yeah, short form, easy. So I was working on the Clone Wars TV show, and the content kind of went squirrely. You had these characters that got darker and darker, these situations that kind of got darker and darker. My kids were 2 years old, 1 year old. And it just wasn't going in a really healthy direction. I don't think as content to be consumed by children, it wasn't going in a good direction, and I needed to move away from that. Not good for me personally, and not good for our kids. So that was a big part of it. I guess that's a negative end of it, but at the same time was this strong feeling of, I have invested 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever, a week, working at these jobs. And my outlet has always been personal creation, artwork creation. To balance that a little bit, working for somebody else and being creative, and letting your own creativity flow. But at that point, it became, well, what would happen if these 40 hours became entirely surrendered to Jesus, offered to Him? What would I do? What does that look like? And the first few years of it looked like heading out to China and out to Vietnam, serving overseas. And then maybe about 3 to 5 years after that, the art side of it started to mesh back in to where now it's kind of, even when we were doing the school with Frank, it was like starting to really intertwine. And now it's feels like it's a really good balance of what I had loved to do and being able to see it surrender to God entirely as well. But now I feel like it's the full package. Yes, I'm back. Oh, sorry. Yeah, come on
Kind of, I guess, a statement, maybe it'll question or conversation will come out of it. I grew up with art. My mom was an art teacher, drawing, painting, ended up being in a band for 12 or 13 years, so I understand there's like a lot of release with art. And when you guys were talking, one thing that came to mind was kind of the showing the development of like the Pixar films. If you've watched any of the shorts and short films and stuff that they have, you see a lot of the writers and the creators of these films dealing with their own story and their own struggles or whatever, and it's healing for them. But then the people that get to experience also get that healing. And yeah, so I don't know if you've experienced that yourself or you've seen that through other artists' process, but just art can be meditative. If it's just a daily practice, through that there might be healing, but also like the specific stories of people's experiences, I know can really be healing. So I don't know if you have anything on that, but just was thinking about that as you guys were talking. So.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think the baseline is the more invested the artist is, the more genuine and the more sincere, and the more they divulge or put into the work, the more people can get out of it. I think the bigger risk you take as a creator is often the bar, the level that people can receive that, or how deep they can feel it. As far as off the top of my head, I can't think of, well, I do remember in kind of a sidelong way, the whole Elsa thing, Let It Go. I don't know if, I've only seen it once, maybe one and a half times maybe, but what I felt like it was about was holding your creativity in and then releasing it. So I related to that on that level. And I think we're right at time. Maybe Buell can do one more other thing.
What is the name of the art ministry? How can people get involved, and where is it being offered?
Oh, great, yeah. So we're based out of Kona, Hawaii. It's with Youth with a Mission. That's the overarching missions organization, Christian mission. The training arm of that is called the University of the Nations. And we're one of many bases, hundreds literally, of bases of all sizes around the world. Ours happens to be several hundred, typically. Other places have like a dozen or 50 or 100. So they're all sizes. The school that we run is called the School of Illustration within the University of the Nation. And we do a lot of other things like Free Comic Book Day. We help out at schools, libraries, and all that kind of stuff. Thanks for the question. All right. So I think we need to wrap this up and hand over the room to the next group coming in. I want to thank you guys all for joining in on this discussion. Thank you so much. Hope we see you around.